Jake Reynolds was a man of few words. As a single father living on a secluded farm in the Midwest, he had learned to rely on his own strength. Every day was a constant reminder of his wife's sudden passing 5 years ago, leaving him with nothing but memories and his young daughter, Lily. Since her mother's death, Jake had been both mother and father to Lily, doing his best to raise her in a world that seemed to be getting colder and more unpredictable with every passing day. Their home was nestled on a plot of land far from the nearest town, and the closest neighbor was miles away. The wind howled through the trees during the cold winter months, and Jake often found himself alone with only the sound of the wind and his thoughts to keep him company. Lily, now 8 years old, had grown used to the quiet, and though she longed for the companionship of other children, she found solace in her father's company. One evening, just as the sun began to set behind the rolling hills, Jake was in the barn tending to the animals when he heard a faint sound, the hum of an engine, followed by a low, desperate whine. It wasn't uncommon for the occasional traveler to pass through, but this noise was different. It was uneven, struggling to maintain a steady rhythm. Jake immediately dropped the pitchfork he was holding and dashed outside, his boots crunching through the snow. He didn't know what to expect, but as he made his way toward the sound, his heart raced with an odd sense of urgency. The storm had begun to pick up again, thick flakes falling heavily, blurring his vision. He squinted into the darkness, trying to discern the source of the noise. And then, through the heavy snow, he saw it. A small aircraft, its engine sputtering, struggling to stay aloft. Before Jake could comprehend the situation fully, the plane tilted to the side and crashed, sending up a plume of snow and debris. Without thinking, Jake ran toward the wreckage. The smell of burning fuel was sharp in the air, but he ignored the risk, pulling the door open. Inside, a woman lay unconscious, a bloodied hand pressed against her side, her clothes torn. She was alive, but barely. Jake's mind raced as he pulled her from the wreckage, struggling to lift her despite the weight of the situation. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from the physical strain, but from the realization that this woman could be the one to change everything for him and Lily. He had no time to waste. The storm was intensifying, and there was no way they could stay out there long. He dragged her into the warmth of the barn, covering her with blankets and starting a fire. His hands shook as he fumbled through his medical kit, trying to stop the bleeding from the gash on her side. "Dad, what's going on?" Lily's voice echoed from the doorway, her face filled with concern. Jake turned, his heart heavy. He had always kept Lily safe from the harsh realities of the world, but now she was seeing something she hadn't been prepared for. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said softly, though his voice trembled. "I need you to go inside and stay warm. There's someone I need to help." Lily hesitated for a moment, but the seriousness in her father's tone made her nod and retreat into the house. Jake focused on the woman, whose breathing was shallow but steady. He had no idea who she was or how she had ended up here, but the urgency of the situation left no room for questions. As he worked to stabilize her, he noticed her dog tags hanging around her neck and the words, "Pilot, United States Air Force," etched on them. His stomach churned with worry. This was no ordinary crash. The woman was military, a trained professional. But who was she running from? And why had her plane been in this part of the world? As the night wore on, Jake stayed by her side, monitoring her condition. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that she finally stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse, filled with confusion and pain. Jake leaned over her, offering a reassuring smile. "You're safe now. You crashed on my property. I'm Jake." She blinked, trying to focus. "Jake, thank you. But I need to get back. They'll be looking for me." Jake's heart skipped a beat. Who was she running from? "Who's after you?" he asked, his voice low, careful. The woman's face twisted in pain as she tried to sit up, but Jake gently stopped her. "You need to rest." "I'm Lieutenant Grace Walker," she said, her words strained. "I'm not supposed to be here. My plane was shot down. I was on a mission, but someone doesn't want me alive." Jake's mind reeled. A military mission? Shot down? This was bigger than he had anticipated, and now she was here, in his barn, unable to leave. "I'll help you, but I need to know what's going on," Jake said, his voice firm. He couldn't let her leave until he understood the danger she was in. The storm raged outside, and with every passing minute, the situation grew more complicated. But what Jake didn't realize was that this injured pilot, this mysterious woman, would bring more than just danger to their doorstep. She would change the course of their lives forever. Days passed, and the storm outside showed no sign of letting up. Grace's injuries began to heal, but she remained cautious, always looking over her shoulder as though expecting someone to burst through the door at any moment. Jake's farm, once a place of solitude and quiet, had become a refuge, but also a hiding place for something much darker. As the days wore on, Jake couldn't help but notice the bond that was forming between Grace and Lily. The young girl, whose life had been defined by the absence of her mother, seemed to find solace in the company of this woman. Grace, despite her fears and the constant worry of being discovered, took to caring for Lily in a way that was both tender and protective. One evening, as Jake worked in the barn, he overheard them talking in the house. He paused, listening in on their conversation, which was soft and filled with an unexpected warmth. "I used to fly with my mom," Lily said, her voice innocent, filled with longing. "She was a pilot too, just like you." Grace's voice softened. "I'm sure she was a great pilot." Lily nodded, though there was a sadness in her eyes. "I don't remember much about her. Just little things, like how she used to take me up in the sky. It was the best thing ever." Grace stayed quiet for a moment before speaking again. "She sounds amazing." Jake's heart ached as he heard the conversation. He had never talked about Lily's mother in such a way. He had never allowed himself to truly mourn her loss, not in front of Lily. But now, listening to Grace and his daughter, he felt something stir within him, something he hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of hope. That night, after the two women had gone to bed, Jake stayed up late, staring at the fire. His thoughts were tangled, filled with the weight of everything that had happened over the past few days. He had a decision to make. The next morning, as Grace moved slowly around the kitchen, Jake approached her, his voice low. "We need to talk." Grace turned, her face wary. "About what?" "You're not alone in this," Jake said firmly. "If someone's after you, I'll protect you. But you need to trust me. I'll help you get back on your feet." Grace looked at him, uncertainty and gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But I can't stay here forever. I have a duty to fulfill. People are depending on me." "I understand," Jake said, his voice steady. "But while you're here, we'll keep you safe." The storm raged on outside, but inside, something had shifted. Jake and Grace had come to an understanding, an unspoken bond. And while they were both aware that danger still lurked on the horizon, they also knew that they were no longer just strangers caught in a storm. They were allies, and together they would face whatever came next. Little did they know that this bond, formed in the shadows of fear and uncertainty, would change both of their lives and Lily's forever.